All right, I'm here today with an E3 week video, shall we say. I have this classified as E3, even though technically Summer Games Fest is sort of the arch rival to E3 now, given that Jeff Keighley has kind of splintered off and is trying to sort of overrun E3 with his own announcements. He's already kind of doing that with the Game Awards in the winter. That was like Winter E3. And I think we all know that E3 is not in the best of shape these days, so there is plenty of room for alternative shows, and Summer Games Fest is one of them. But as was kind of pointed out on DCP last night, like E3 is almost like just like a term, like it's Christmas time, like it's E3 time, like it's just this sort of general window of time now where even if you're not technically a part of E3, you're still making like E3 announcements. Like we've seen that with Sony and EA and Activision and like even the places that aren't attending E3. I thought I would briefly go through definitely not all of the Summer Games Fest things that happened in 100 minutes or so yesterday, but the ones that really stood out to me and the things that I was interested in, which was not actually that large of a percentage of things, but I mean, that's not super unusual for an entire show's worth of stuff. I may do videos like these for some of the bigger shows like Microsoft, probably not Nintendo. I'm just not as into Nintendo stuff as most people, so definitely Microsoft, maybe Ubisoft. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about the Square Enix show and things like that too. But Summer Games Fest, there were a few highlights. I think you know the most obvious one. I'll just save that for later. But I was actually very interested in what the show opened with, which was the reveal of Wonderlands, a Borderlands spin-off that, according to Ashley Birch, the voice of Tiny Tina, is not actually a Borderlands game. It's not even like Borderlands : Wonderlands. It is like completely detached from the branding of Borderlands, despite starring Tiny Tina and despite still being a looter and having that animation style and all the stuff like that. I knew something was coming like this. I knew they were going to do some sort of spin-off game, but I didn't know exactly what it would be like and what would be shown. They didn't show like a ton, but I was surprised to kind of hear what this game is going to be like, supposedly, and it doesn't just seem like a mini Borderlands game like kind of the pre-sequel was. This does, oh hello Evie, it does seem like this is going to be kind of an experimental project. The biggest differences we've seen are that it is going to involve like spellcasting and not just traditional gunplay, though it still has guns, and also there will be a bigger focus on melee weapons, it seems, given that we're kind of in a medieval theme here. This entire thing was kind of based on the success of Assault on Dragon Keep, the Tiny Tina DLC from Borderlands 2, which is probably one of the best DLCs in all of Borderlands, and I don't know, just kind of generally, it's like one of the best DLCs I played and across most games. It was kind of Tiny Tina's exploration of grief through like a Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy game, and now they are going like full fantasy game with it, with this idea that they can lean into the fantasy element more and more. I'm curious what they talk about, like making your own class. Like they said it's like a multi-class game, but I'm not sure if that means like you can make a custom character now, or if there are like 4 classes like rogue, mage, warrior, whatever, that kind of thing. I'm a little nebulous on that, and it doesn't sound like you'll be able to play as Tiny Tina, like as one of the core heroes. So this might be a pretty significant departure. It comes out in early 2022, I think they said, but the way things are, who knows what that might turn into. It could be a couple month delay, or who knows. We know Gearbox is also working on Borderlands 4, but we got no information about that. And I assume this is not going to be like on the scale of a true Borderlands game. They did say it's like its own standalone like thing with a substantive campaign and all this stuff, but I would be amazed if it was like, had a campaign as big as Borderlands 2 or 3, just because those are really big games, and I'm just not expecting anything of that size, but especially when we know that they are making a Borderlands sequel to come. So that really caught my interest, and that's something I'm very curious about. Again, they didn't show a whole lot from it, but I'm always a big Borderlands person, so I'm very interested to see where they go from here. Past that, skip over a lot of stuff for me. I know people were kind of into the Metal Slug Tactics thing. I don't like tactics games. I'm very curious about Lost Ark. I know everyone was kind of joking that it looked just like kind of like a bootleg Diablo clone. But Lost Ark is a very popular game over in its Smilegate over in Korea, and now it is coming to the West with the help of Amazon Games. Amazon kind of sponsored this entire show, which is what we saw kind of New World spotlighted at one point. Amazon itself is obviously not great at making original games because they're either all terrible or canceled. New World is potentially promising, but I think we're a long way from deciding that. But they're just I think they're just acting as a Western distributor for this, not like they have any real role in developing it. So I don't think that really matters one way or the other. Obviously, I am always in the market for something Diablo-ish or Diablo adjacent, and the people I've heard from, like Rex, who are like kind of know about Lost Ark, they're really excited for this to come over. So I don't know. That sounds like something that I could potentially be into, and we will see how that plays out. We had a few weirder moments in the Game Awards, like when Hideo Kojima showed up to mention 9/11 and not really announce anything except a Death Stranding director's cut, a game that definitely needs to be longer, but it wasn't going to be a Jeff Keighley show without some sort of Kojima interaction, and he just sort of talked about what he's thinking about for his next games, but it doesn't even sound like he has really a firm idea yet of what he's going to make next. So I've also heard from, I think it was Jeff Grubb said that like we should not expect any sort of Microsoft Kojima Productions deal announced during E3. That would make sense considering apparently Kojima does not really have a game yet that he's making, so it would be a weird time to announce something like that. Then we moved on to a couple other things. I love when Blizzard shows up to show off new character models for Overwatch 2 that literally are borderline indistinguishable from the old character models. I don't know why they keep doing this. It is not as exciting as they think it is. I'd really love to see some of the PvE content that they kept promising for Overwatch 2, because that is the only thing that sounds like they're going to put in that makes it seem like an actual sequel. So I don't know how many characters we have left to do new model reveals for, but this seems to be taking forever. And then, I mean, we can't really end this without talking about Elden Ring. There have been lots of rumblings for a while now that maybe Elden Ring would debut at Summer Games Fest, and as we got closer, there were kind of more and more reports that, yeah, it's probably going to, and then like even during the show, there were like pretty clear hints that like Jeff was memeing about it a little bit, and like Ryan Reynolds even mentioned something about it, and like it seemed pretty clear that it was going to end with this big blockbuster reveal. It was neat seeing Jeff get like legitimately choked up. He's like, it's the world premiere to end all world premieres. Like, it's fine. Like, you know how much he says world premiere, but like this is clearly the biggest world premiere I think he's ever had access to. I mean, he did get to debut like the entire Xbox Series X on the Game Awards, which was a surprise. But in terms of games, this is certainly the biggest. I'm not like as crazy, Elden Ring person as most people on the internet have been, but where it's become this like elevated meme of like Half-Life 3, to a certain extent, where we haven't heard anything about it for so long. People were wondering if it was real or not. But I mean, it was impossible to see that footage and not be like totally blown away by it. I mean, it just looked absolutely incredible. I think they could not have put on a better trailer kind of showing off the weirdness and wildness of it, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And not only that, not only did we see all these weird bosses with dragon hands and like people getting skewered on staves and catching lightning and all sorts of crazy stuff and pot goblins and things like that, but we also got an actual release date, which is January, I think 22nd, 2022. So we are 7 months away from that, almost 6 months away from that. And that is a big deal because we have heard literally nothing about this game for years, and now it seems they are not only ready to show it off, but almost ready to release it. And it's interesting that they're just debuting it outside the holiday window. I don't think a game like that needs to debut inside the holiday window to boost sales. I don't think that's going to have any problem selling to all the people that want to buy it, so it can come out whenever it wants. Obviously, most games end up delayed at least once or twice from their announcement. But this is From Software we're talking about, and they usually don't have these kind of like. If it did get delayed, I would not imagine it would be for more than a few weeks or 2 months or something. Like nothing super crazy. obviously, we're bringing back the old, like, what if this much anticipated game is actually terrible, like the whole like cyberpunk thing. But I think From Software has a more proven track record than, say, CDPR did with The Witcher 3, and not a ton else to that level before that. From Software has delivered hit after hit after hit, Game of the Year contender after Game of the Year contender after Game of the Year winner. So it is, I think, pretty safe to imagine that this is going to be a great game. And it is cool to see that it is coming out relatively soon and we do not have to wait super long for it. That was an announcement that kind of made the entire rest of the show worth it. I really did not have an interest in the vast majority of the stuff other than kind of what I just mentioned. But it was still a cool show, cool moments for smaller games here and there, and different companies with different kinds of presences and things like that. But it is still, the Elden Ring will probably be the biggest game announcement, I imagine, of this entire E3 season. It's hard to imagine another reveal topping that. So Jeff has that feather in his cap. But obviously there are going to be a lot of shows to watch, like Microsoft and Ubisoft and Square, and maybe is Take-Two doing a real show? I'm not sure, but I'm not expecting GTA 6 or anything. But the Microsoft show is obviously the biggest one to keep an eye on, and because it's probably not going to just be, it'll be kind of a look at all the first-party games that we've only heard a little bit about to a certain extent, and then with Microsoft, who knows if they're going to add to Game Pass or what new program they're going to roll out or whatever. So I'm going to be watching all this stuff all weekend, and for the bigger shows, the ones that have kind of larger announcements, I will try and make some sort of impressions, reaction video to them. So things will be a little different the next couple of days here, and I'm still doing Destiny stuff, but I'm going to maybe put those videos on hold for a little bit unless there's something like imminently breaking I want to discuss. But so that's all I got for now. That was Summer Games Fest, the sort of opener to E3 season, even though it's its own thing, but you know what I mean. And we will have plenty to talk about for the next week at least. So I'll see you guys later, and thanks for watching.